All right, welcome to Dual Redundancy, the only podcast where you can hear all latest in television and entertainment news with too many hosts with exactly the same opinions. I'm one of those hosts, David Allen, and another one is
John Berwick, and the third one is
Kyle Bridger. I will say, and I'm just gonna say that I am the Saw franchise because I want to make you saw off your arm when I record this thing. John, I'm gonna be nice to you, and I'm gonna give you the Resident Evil franchise because I feel like gamer.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dave is the Sharknado franchise.
Oh, okay. I'll take it. Sharknado. All right. Three franchises. Well, I guess one made the bracket, didn't make it out of the first round. But yeah, tonight we're talking film franchises. We got our big bracket. March is over, so we got to settle up the bracket and reveal the winner of the film franchise bracket we did this March. Before we get to that, though, we have this first segment to talk about some news and stuff going on in the industry. And John, just help me out. What's it called again?
In and out points.
In, order out. In, order out. In, out, in, out, in, out.
Yes, it is. It is in and out points. Let's see here. Our first one involves something we're going to be talking about next week on the podcast, the 93rd Oscars. There's one film at the Academy Awards that only got 2 nominations this year, and many thought it could have picked up more, especially in a slower year, and that film was Tenet. Now, IndieWire wrote up a piece asking why the Christopher Nolan $200 million blockbuster was not supported by Warner Brothers in an awards campaign. They answered their own question. Christopher Nolan. This article goes in depth of why Warner Brothers may have taken their money out of Tenet and put it into other films like Judas and the Black Messiah. But according to sources, and what we kind of correctly guessed over the summer, the studio tried to calculate the ideal theatrical release timing that would yield the most return on its investment for Nolan in the film. But Christopher Nolan had a different idea. He wanted to save theaters. He wanted to bring them back from the dead. Well, it was released, not the greatest domestically. And then in November, Nolan told Warner Brothers to put money on extending the film's release instead of the Oscar campaign. So they did that. So they just did that. What do you think about this kind of extra development, Kyle? That the money that may have been used for this awards campaign for the film was instead, at Nolan's request, supposedly put into the film being in theaters a little bit longer.
I mean, I think his thought process would be hopefully that extra money put towards the extended release is going to make more money for him in the long run, make more money for the people that are working on the project, hopefully, and the producers. And obviously, the more money you make in a project, the more that future projects you're going to get because of that, because of the money it makes. So to me, it makes sense for him to do this, but it was a problem of his own creation in the first place. So that's what the real issue was here. And so I think that probably botched everything. Maybe if you push it back and now you're in a different window, maybe it's picking up steam instead of, it's kind of forgotten about right now. So it is, again, I understand the idea is a good idea. But again, it's a problem of his own creation and I don't feel bad at all.
Yeah, there's so many things to the story because for him, obviously, okay, you want to save theaters, but we talked about it by sometimes opening up the theaters when there was nothing to play and a limited amount of people that wanted to go, it actually hurt the theaters because it cost them a lot to open up and operate. But then he also makes money off of the film in the back end. So wouldn't you want to maybe wait on this film for the biggest possible release, which means more money in your pocket?
Mm-hmm.
And then also Oscars, it's like, well, to be able to say, especially in a year like this, I have a Best Picture nominee. I have the Best Picture possible winner.
Mhm.
If I mean, there was a lot of promotion for this film because every week it was delayed, delayed, delayed. Oh, it's opening theaters. Oh, it's saving theaters.
Mhm.
You couldn't have bought this publicity the film got, but still only managed to get 2 nominations. Do you think, John, if Warner Brothers spent more money, do you think Tenet could have gotten more nominations?
I don't think so. I think that he made a bad call. Nolan made a bad call. As to personally, I think he made a bad call as to when it went out, and I think he doubled down on it, and it didn't pay off even at the double down. So yeah, I think if they had kind of delayed it, or I know we've previously talked about at home distribution, if that had been a factor, I think that could have really made it be more successful. But he seemed pretty obstinate about pursuing anything other than theaters.
Yeah, and I wonder what it would have done if it did something like, I mean, Godzilla versus Kong had a great opening weekend. Again, and the pandemic has, you know, for the most part, gotten better, and there's been more people vaccinated and more theaters opened up. So that is different from when Tenet came out, but it's doing well at theaters and at home. Could they have done something with that for Tenet, or done something that they did for like Mulan, or what they're going to do for Black Widow, where it's like, okay, it's going to be in some theaters, but it's also going to be at your home for $30 a pop opening weekend. Could that have helped for Tenet? There's many different ways to it. In the end, it probably didn't help, uh, Warner Brothers to want to put any money into the awards campaign. When in December we talked about, Nolan called out HBO Max and said it was the worst streaming service, and that he was, quote, relieved it wasn't launching on HBO Max like the other 2021 releases that are going into theaters and on the streamer at the same time.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, there's no love from HBO to go out of their way to help you when you
yeah,
start crapping on the product that they offer. I mean, and I will say, I think HBO Max is the best streaming
yeah,
service right now that you could possibly have. But going back to the award situation with this movie, I mean, I don't even know. Like, you would say a movie like this with the technical categories, but like that we talk about the sound always. It always seems off to me. So I don't know. I don't know with that, but I don't think the storyline is worth it. Maybe some cinematic elements to it, but I don't think it's worth a screenplay nod or anything like that. So even still, I don't think this is an awards worthy movie, even in a kind of an off year. I don't know if one is gonna jump jump into the
yeah,
echelon. You know?
yeah. Because off the top of my head, the films that definitely broke in at the Oscars were, Inception definitely was nominated for Best Picture, and I think probably screenplay. Um, and then I believe Dunkirk was a
Dunkirk. Yeah.
Best Picture and probably Best Director
Yeah.
nomination. I can't remember about Interstellar, and maybe Memento made it in for screenplay. I'm not completely sure, but his films can get in there, as even if they are sci-fi and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Um, it is a smaller year. You would thought it would have gotten those kind of cinematic nominations. It got two. It got one in production design, which was kind of an odd one, and uh, visual effects. Um, and it's interesting because the visual effects nomination may have come from the craftspeople themselves submitting a sizzle reel for considerations. They kind of banded together to release a sizzle reel for this because,
Mhm.
as I said, Warner Brothers did not mail screeners to the Academy. They did not plunk down $12,500 to upload the film on the Academy portal. There was
Mhm.
no FYC ads, billboards, stuff like that. All that money was put into the film being in theaters. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Music's in the chat. By the way, I saw Godzilla versus Kong, first new movie I've seen in like 5 years. The HBO model's working. We're getting
Yeah.
Music's watching Godzilla versus Kong.
I'm curious to see the word of mouth on that movie
Yeah.
as opposed to like, I don't know, just were you going to plan on watching it before or did you just want to be part of
I want to
the
be a part of the
zeitgeist?
conversation. And that's kind of the thing where it's great, where it's like it's launching streaming service, everyone's able to see it that weekend. And there
Mhm.
was that pop and the buzz, and Mark was getting us excited. And
Yeah.
It worked on me. That buzz. I checked it out opening weekend. Uh,
From your couch.
From my couch.
Opening weekend. I love
I
how
was
you said
there.
it like you're good, like you went out. You're like, I checked it out opening
I
weekend.
made dinner. I got, that was less than the cost for concessions at the movie theater. And
Yeah.
no parking I had to worry about. It was great. It was great. All right. Enough of that. Let's move into another director that has a lot of opinions, Martin Scorsese. In March, there was a Harper Magazine essay that Scorsese discusses Fellini's filmography, and he uses the Italian filmmaking icon to argue why the magic of cinema is now being lost among the onslaught of content being released by film studios and streaming companies. What's interesting by this is he did have to acknowledge that streamers have helped his career. Netflix, The Irishman, and his upcoming Killers of the Flower Moon, which is going to be on Apple. So, but he says the art of cinema is being systematically devalued, sidelined, demeaned, and reduced to its lowest common denominator by films, called content. Content. That's the word he kept coming back to, and I'll read this full quote, and then I'll get your guys' opinion on it. It's a long one, but as recently as 15 years ago, the term content was heard only when people were discussing the cinema on a serious level. It was contrasted with and measured against form. Then gradually it was used more and more by the people who took over media companies, most of whom knew nothing about the history of the art form or even cared enough to think that they should. Content became a business term for all moving images. A David Lean movie, a cat video, a Super Bowl commercial, a superhero sequel, a series episode. It was linked, of course, not to the theatrical experience, but to home viewing on the streaming platforms that have come to overtake the movie-going experience, just as Amazon overtook physical stores. If further viewing is suggested by algorithms based on what you've already seen, and the suggestions are based only on subject matter or genre, then what does that do to the art of cinema?
Next, see with what you want to see. I mean,
Yeah.
But also that last little line doesn't make sense with the rest of the thing. How does watching whatever, The Godfather or Honey Boo Boo, why does the algorithm, them offering me something next change filmmaking? Because I could watch The Godfather and be like, hey, do you want to watch, Casino or another great film that doesn't make any sense to me. That last line doesn't.
if
But
anything, it possibly brings forward things that are less prevalent, that are masterpieces, kind of hidden gems.
Yeah, the algorithm could be like, hey, you're really on this kick with a named director here. Do you know he also worked on this film? Or he was inspired by this director? And it's like, I mean, it depends on who's running the algorithm. If the algorithm is Netflix and they're going to point you to their Netflix original movie, The Wrong Missy, after you watched whatever, classic film you did, well, maybe that's a bad algorithm. But if the algorithm is run by the Peabody Award winning whatever group, it's like, oh, this is high class cinema. Okay, here.
So but here's the thing, going back to like Scorsese, I guess you could say that there's less small movies being made, but isn't that the whole indie circuit? Isn't that these film festivals where these small films get bought and then you have the next Oscar nominee? Like, that's the Oscars in a nutshell. It's all these tiny films at these film festivals that are kind of branching in, and I would think he would consider those artistic, right? And I don't think we're losing anything in the film integrity or people that work in the business. All the other stuff is superfluous. It's extra, but that's not threatening movies anyways. It never was. You know what I'm saying? It just seems like he's mad about things being made.
Content. A cat video in a Super Bowl commercial is not going to be held to the same standard as your 3-hour Irishman film. It's just not. Like, I can
And
see maybe what he was saying, where it's like, oh, there's definitely a line being blurred between miniseries and film, where it's like, oh, this is a 10-part movie, and it's just the Queen's Gambit. It's okay, it's just a longer movie, or I could see that line is being blurred. But with this, it's like there's no distinction between these two different, completely polar opposite things.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, unless he wants to get angry about maybe people, uh, if they're consuming all this crap content and they like it, what's going to make them like this artistic film that they have to sit 3.5 hours through, like The Irishman or whatever? I mean, unless he's saying on that end, but I still think that people can enjoy reality TV and be
yeah,
artistic too, and think in different realms. So it just sounds like he's mad at the world changing, and this might be like old man territory, because as far as I'm concerned, films are those artistic films, those indie films are still being
yeah,
made with high quality.
yeah.
On top of all that, sorry, Dave.
No,
Look at the way film has changed in the last couple years. I mean, think of how it used to be done on reels and black and white and at what, like 10 frames per second or whatever, and then we get more steady frame rates, and we get color, and we get sound, and then we go digital. How is this anything besides the progression of media? I mean, all that. I mean, you could look back and say, yeah, I kind of liked 24 frames on film better than HD digital, but that doesn't mean that HD digital is bad and worthless. It's just a different way of doing it. I don't see any reason why people can't continue to make the 3 hour Irishman, and then have your CGI cat singing meow mix on the internet. What's the difference? They're both two different halves of the same the same thing.
The ironic part is it's that in The Irishman, he was using like some brand new
yeah.
technology to change the faces. So I mean, that's breaking
For a streaming
cinematic
service.
integrity. It's
Yeah.
just so ridiculous.
Yeah, at the end of the day, more stuff is being made and more stories are being told by people that may have not had the chance to tell their story. They've to be able to make a film on my phone and upload it and get it sent to a festival or being seen by some powerful agent or whatever it is. More people are being able to tell their story and get their stuff out there for people to see. That's great. Do we
Mhm.
really need the same 10 old white guys telling us the stories for the next 60 years? No. We need new voices. And
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
All right. One last thing I'll point tonight, and it involves, this is what I would call a classic film. I am surprised Scorsese did not mention it in his list of content. Mrs. Doubtfire.
Woo.
Classic film. There was a tweet that went viral from the unverified @FactsOnFilm Twitter account. And it said, while filming Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams improvised so much that there was a PG, PG-13, R, and NC-17 cut of the film. What? NC-17?
Yeah.
He had to have pulled something out of somewhere to do that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, NC-17 is like reserved for the most graphic content, the most graphic sex. Because okay, I feel like with an R-rated film, you say the F word twice, it's R. It's R. Like no matter what.
Yeah.
But NC-17, man, what was going on in that film? Oh my!
I thought there was like a clarification in the tweet that said maybe not NC-17, but there was like something. There was definitely a rated R version, the director or something.
So the director, Chris Columbus, did actually confirm to Entertainment Weekly that while there is an R-rated cut, there's no NC-17 cut.
Yeah, I'm like, that's insane. I mean, in what world did he think this was making the cut? If
Maybe
he's,
maybe the content was there to do it. They just didn't assemble it.
maybe.
Yeah,
That's
maybe.
true, I guess.
Again, you could say whatever you want almost for an R-rated film. We've seen that in all the Seth Rogen, Judd Apatow movies. You could say whatever you want. It's R-rated. NC-17, you have to do some graphic stuff to bump it up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the director said, quote, he would sometimes go into territory that wouldn't be appropriate for a PG-13 movie, but certainly appropriate and hilariously funny for an R-rated film. I would be open to maybe doing a documentary about the making of the film and enabling people to see certain scenes re-edited in an R-rated version.
That would be
That'd be
interesting.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, release the Doubtfire cut. Coming, the 4-hour version to HBO Max. Can't wait. Yeah, I definitely has to be some improv from Robin Williams, because if that's being said, I'm sure that means there's an R-rated cut of Aladdin out there. You know?
Well, he did say, "I will show you the world." So,
Whoa. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that video, right, Kyle? The viral A Whole Nude World.
I have not. I don't think so.
All right, you got something to look up after the podcast on YouTube. There
Okay.
you go. That's my recommendation of the week.
A whole nude world.
All right, all right. I think that's it. I think that's it for In and Out Points tonight. We have to get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's podcast. We're talking March Madness. To get you in the spirit of March Madness, we got a sound clip. John?
As good as it gets. Oh my God! Phenomenal! Dreams to come true.
All right, whose dream is coming true tonight to be named
On
your
Dual
favorite
Redundancy.
film franchise bracket? Oh my God. All right. It's a yearly tradition to do a bracket that's somehow pop culture related. 2 years ago, for instance, we did a Oscar Best Picture. Like, what was the best picture year at the Oscars? All the nominees. What was the best year? Last year we did TV. What was your favorite TV character currently on TV? So this year we're going back to film, and we're doing film franchise. And I'm going to set it up, talk about what didn't make the cut, and then we're going to go round by round, talking about some of the matchups, and then reveal the big winner live on the stream tonight. But we defined franchise as a series of 4 or more films that either share the same fictional universe or is marketed as a series. So no trilogies here. You gotta have 4 or more. Some franchises seemingly cover multiple films. You got the MCU, Marvel, and you also have Spider-Man here. Well, you know, they're different studios are legally involved. It's the Disney studio, and you have Sony doing Spider-Man movies, and they sometimes have the characters cross over, but they're different things. The DC universe and the Batman universe are sometimes considered separate. So we looked at sites like Box Office Mojo, Business Insider, Rotten Tomatoes, and that's how they listed them separately. So we said, okay, we're going to agree with those outlets. And then finally, seating. Seating was decided based on the total North American box office. And these totals came from Box Office Mojo, which means the MCU, number one seed, 8.5 billion was the total for all those films, followed by Star Wars with 5 billion. And then our 32nd franchise was American Pie
Woo!
with 409 million over 4 theatrical films. Every round started on Monday, it closed on Sunday, and between our listeners and some movie fans from the movie and sample size subreddits, every round got at least 50 votes. Most of the times it was more. So pretty good sample size to figure out the film franchise bracket. All right, let's talk about what missed the cut. Was there anything you guys thought missed the cut on these? We have 32 films here, film franchises. Because I have some from listeners here.
Okay.
Start off, Mike Ledoux said, "Where is Scream? Conjuring my ass." Scream, the Scream franchise. There's 4 films in that franchise. I believe they're working on a 5th now.
Yes. Yeah.
I do like Scream. I wanted to put it on the list, but it was like when I looked at the box office, it was actually bit farther on the list, and I looked at where it was. It was under American Pie, for instance, with box office.
Uh-huh.
Then it was under some other horror franchises. It was under Jaws, Paranormal Activity, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. It was below them. It was nearly tied with The Exorcist, box office wise. Do you think it was okay I left Scream off on the list here?
Yeah. I think Scream is considered a cult classic. So, yes, it's in Mike Ledoux's realm of the world. But
Yeah, because
I know the fans really do love that movie, and I enjoy it. It's campy, it's fun, but I think it's definitely a love-hate with that movie.
I think the first one, many people are like, "This is a great movie. This is great." The sequels are hit or miss,
Yeah.
especially that third one, and then the fourth one. There's some fans, there's some detractors, so I feel like that's how a lot of it was with the franchise. It's like, all right, yeah, one film, and the other ones are
Yeah.
getting you off the list. You gotta have a well-rounded team. You can't just have one knockout film. Before I reveal some other left off films, any you guys have any that you think should be on this list?
I'm looking at the box office mojo thing just to get a sense of.
It's kind of tough. I mean, like,
Yeah.
my first thought goes to, like, well, I guess that's only 3. All right, yeah. It's
a lot of
tough.
them are like
It's
just
tough.
like, oh yeah, it's only 3. And at first I was going to do trilogies for this, but then it's like a lot of nowadays, a lot of these classic trilogies, they're either making a fourth or there is a fourth. I mean, The Matrix soon is going to have a fourth.
Yeah.
Toy Story just released a fourth. All these ones that had 3, Men in Black, they just made a fourth. Like, it's just so that's why we moved up to 4 here.
So I was just looking at one. The Terminator.
French. That could have made the list.
Didn't they have, like, not spin-offs, but, like, I thought there was more than 4. Oh yeah, I guess there would be more than. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's
franchise,
7.
Oh, actually,
there's 7.
Did make our list actually.
It did?
Yeah, 25 seed. It lost to James Bond.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I thought it wasn't on. I double checked too, just to see.
It's okay. Let's see. Z Milan he also said Scream, but he also questioned Alien, Despicable Me, and for me, Despicable Me. It's like, okay, well, I picked Shrek and Toy Story for anime. We don't need a whole animated. That's not our demo. Shrek and Toy Story, I feel like they cross over. I don't know how many people in our demo are watching Despicable Me franchise, but okay.
Maybe, I don't know.
But Alien, are you guys fans of Alien?
I haven't seen them. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
me
know
neither.
one is considered like one of the best movies, but I might have seen a few scenes, but not whole.
Yeah, I've definitely seen scenes
movie.
from it. I mean, that's the classic one with the face, with the little face that comes out of
Yeah,
it. You know?
Yeah. So yeah, like I feel like again, first one classic, but then it's like, okay, are the other ones really that good? And I like the highest grossing of the bunch is this Prometheus one, which I've heard is hit or miss, and that was only 126 million at the box office. So,
wow.
I don't know. Yeah, a lot of commenters were actually mad about the Alien snub, but better luck next year, guys. Okay. All right, let's jump into this here. We're gonna go round by round. We'll talk about some of the ones, the blowouts, the surprises, stuff like that. Say round 1 finished up. We got from 32 franchises down to 16, and the huge blowout: Star Wars 95% to Sauce 5%. Number 2 seed versus a 31 seed. Any surprises there with Saw losing?
No, Saw. You want to talk about a franchise with one good movie, and then, it's amazing how many movies can get made off of one good solid movie, and that is Saw.
They're doing a new one, like rebooting the franchise with Spiral. It's with Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. It's like from the Book of Saw, I believe they're marketing as.
Wow, interesting.
Coming out this summer. So
interesting.
Yeah, I don't think horror really did all that well in the looking of here. I mean, even like The Conjuring lost to the DC extended universe.
Well, I just think with horror, it's a very niche thing. Like people are really either into it or people are not into it at all. I just feel like that's how it is when it comes to that genre.
Yeah, Halloween lost to Spider-Man. Yeah, I don't think any horror even made it out of the first round, but um, let's see. One that wasn't a surprise, the MCU beat American Pie. The thing that was surprising, though, American Pie did get 6% of the vote. So,
Hey, dude, I mean, that was like the teenage coming of age film. I would understand if you're somebody like
that
my
one time
age.
at band camp, yeah.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I didn't vote for American Pie, but I mean, as someone who doesn't really watch the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'd be like, oh, okay, who cares?
yeah, there was a commenter who wrote it. I think American Pie could have taken Rocky down.
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow.
Rocky
Oh.
didn't make it out of the first round. It lost to Middle Earth franchise.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some close ones real quick. X-Men over Die Hard. That was close, 51 to 49%. X-Men won. And then this is the one that kind of shocked me, I thought. Planet of the Apes, a 22 seed, won over Fast and Furious, which was 11 seed, and it was again 51 to 49%. I never got into the Planet of the Apes franchise. I believe you saw some of the recent ones, Kyle, right? Or no?
No, I haven't seen really.
Maybe you picked it in a box office draft. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think that probably is possible.
But yeah, just those Fast and Furious films, they're like $1 billion a pop. It just makes money, and that's why I was like, okay, they're gonna easily make it through the first round.
Yeah.
But anything that stand out to you guys in the first round that either lost, that won?
I'm just going through. I mean, I'm just gonna mention some lower seeds that beat. So Mission Impossible beat Hunger Games.
As it should.
I think that's what I voted for. So I mean, I'm just looking.
One I was definitely excited with, and it just really just lucked out with like how the seating worked. Did not plan this. Shrek and Toy Story actually went up against each other in the first round. I was glad to see Toy Story win. It was 72 to 28%. Again, I think, say what you will, Shrek 1 is actually a classic, parody of the whole Disney kind of princess fairy tale story. But I mean, Toy Story. I mean, the first one's great. The third one is amazing, and 2 and 4 are good films. So it's like, you don't really have I think all those in Rotten Tomatoes are like 98, 99, 100%. So
one that I'm not surprised lower seed won was Born Identity over Transformers. What I'm surprised by is that Transformers are a 12 seed. Like people are still going people are still going to see that.
And this is North American box office too. It isn't the worldwide box office, but
yeah, that is wild to me. 12th out of all film franchises. Crazy.
Oh,
now we know why Michael Bay still has a job.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see here. Let's go into the next round. We'll talk about the results of round 2. This is where we went from 16 franchises to 8. And I probably should have mentioned this earlier. If you're having trouble following along on the audio version, we are streaming on Twitch. This video will be on YouTube. That might be an easier way to see how the bracket's unfolding. But for whatever reason, you're just on audio, go to the blog, dualredundancy.com, and you can see the bracket as we're going through this to kind of see what won and what lost between each one. But, all right, in this round, we got a couple more just blowouts. Middle Earth over the DC Extended Universe, 87 to 13%. So Justice League didn't get the Justice League Snyder cut bump, only 13% compared to the Lord of the Rings franchise. And then Marvel overtook Star Trek, 91 to 9%.
Wow. I just think it's two different eras.
Yeah.
I bet if we put Marvel up against like Star Trek, like maybe a generation before, it'd be a lot different.
New Sticks, I voted Star Trek. So
Yeah, I just think it's a generational thing for that one. Even though J.J. Abrams tried to bring back the Star Trek universe with that whole thing, but
yeah,
But yeah.
J.J. Abrams is always just trying to bring back stuff. He did Mission Impossible 3, obviously Star Trek, Star Wars. He doesn't do a lot of original stuff anymore. I feel like it's just
Yeah.
bringing stuff back.
Yeah. I'm wondering if what'd you say? Is Music's in the chat?
Yeah,
that
music's
said-
in the chat.
I
Yeah.
wonder because I remember a Trekkie or whatever they
Mm.
call him. He was really upset by J.J. Abrams doing what he did to Star Trek. He said he was auditioning for Star Wars. It's like Star Trek and Star Wars. Star Trek's supposed to be naval battleships in like space. It's a slower moving. It's not like like all this fast paced stuff. So
It was expletive. He did both. So, yeah. Never should have happened. Okay. We set Music's off. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move in to some. I think this is the surprise for me. This was the surprise of the entire bracket for me, was the run that Indiana Jones is going on. Indiana Jones took down Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a 4 seed. Indiana Jones was a 20 seed. The vote was 58.5 to 41.5%. What do you think about this one, Kyle? Indiana Jones versus Spider-Man.
Well, I mean, I've only seen, this is horrible, but
Uh-oh.
I've only seen the first Indiana Jones movie, which is good. I really
it's a
liked
great
it.
one, yeah.
And I could see why it might beat Spider-Man, because in my mind of what I know about Spider-Man is the origin story, 3 different movies. So it's practically the same movie 3 times. So, I mean, I can understand why Indiana Jones would win. I mean, that I feel like Indiana Jones is just timeless. We talked about the generational thing with Star Trek and Marvel, but Indiana Jones just feels like whoever's seen it has loved it and has kind of always loved it. So I get it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I see pros and cons on both here. I feel like, sure, Spider-Man, they had to redo it so many times, but there's definitely people. I mean, I think the Maguire, Spider-Man 1 and 2, some of the greatest, it started it. The Garfield ones, yeah, we don't need to really talk about them. And then the Tom Holland Spider-Man, a lot of people like them.
Yeah.
The first one, Homecoming, I thought was a lot of fun. And the new one, which is rumored to have that whole Spider-Verse kind of thing, which technically Spider-Verse, the animated version, was included in this franchise, which was also great and an Academy Award winning film. So sure, they have a lot of great ones in there, but the con is they had to reboot it so many times. Indiana Jones, however, first one, classic. Third one, also great. Second one, it really doesn't really hold up PC-wise to now. And it's also kind of hit or miss as well. The fourth one is usually universally criticized online. So it's like, again, it goes back to the whole thought of like, man, you really hit one home run, you got a triple in there, and then you struck out. It's like, but then Spider-Man, it's like, well, you got Spider-Man 1, 2, Homecoming, Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's true. That's true.
I think the weight of the first Indiana Jones is really what's driving it. I think that's what most people think of when they think of Indiana Jones. Not 4, not 2. I think they think of that first one. And from somebody sitting here voting, going through, they're spending 5 minutes looking at this. They're not sitting down watching the movies, looking up all. Most people, I would assume, are not looking up all the what's encapsulated in the Spider-Verse and what's encapsulated in Indiana Jones. And gut reaction, I think that it's that first Indiana Jones, and that's what's pushing it.
Yeah. Somebody knew the outcome before the round was even over. They commented, Indiana Jones can suck my butt. So that was a comment. They knew. They're like, oh man, they're going to ruin Spider-Man, take him out of the competition. But let's see here. One of the close ones in this one, it was actually kind of sad to see for me. The Wizarding World beat Mission Impossible 55 to 45%. I think, again, I think the Harry Potter films, I definitely have a fond place in my heart for them. Not a big fan of Fantastic Beasts films, but man, I really love the Mission Impossible franchise. So I was sad to see that. Anything else in this next round that really, was good, was bad, surprised you?
Well, yeah, I think it's just that Indiana Jones thing. I'm not. Here's the thing. I love the X-Men and like their abilities. I don't like the films. A lot of them. A lot of them are bad. I mean, if we're including Logan in the X-Men like movie,
Yeah.
that's a great movie. But and there's like one I think one X-Men movie I like, but the rest are just like, why are we doing this to ourselves? So I understand it's very popular, but it's just interesting to see how popular it is, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say I was also sad to see Star Wars overtake Toy Story. It was never going to make out of that division. It was just
Yeah.
have Star Wars in that division. It didn't stand a chance, but
That's a pretty stacked upper part of the bracket
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Rocky, Lord of the Rings, The Conjuring is, and then you have DC Extended Universe, which is that whole thing.
Yeah.
Toy Story and Shrek, two animated powerhouses. Saw, which is whatever, and Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty stacked part of that bracket.
And I will say, not to give anything away for Indiana Jones, but I mean, outside of Spider-Man, I feel like it wasn't that strong of a lower division here. Sure, there's some good ones in here, but like, if I'm looking through it, okay, Halloween, Pirates of the Caribbean, again, a great first one, not so great other ones. X-Men, Transformers, so
Yeah,
once it
it
beat
did.
Spider-Man, it had a pretty good. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, let's see here. Our next round, we went from 8 franchises to 4, and there was really no blowouts this time. It was a lot of the MCU defeated James Bond 67 to 33%. Indiana Jones defeated X-Men 73.5 to 26.5%. So kind of like 2/3 both of these, or 3/4 for the last one. I don't know. I guess this is maybe a surprise. I'm not sure. Batman defeated the Wizarding World 58 to 42%. What do you think about the Wizarding World losing to Batman here?
I like the Nolan Batman movies. And I like some of the other Batman movies, but Harry Potter just is so ingrained in just from growing up. So I probably would have taken Harry Potter on my end, or the Wizarding World, because the Fantastic Beasts movies can be thrown in the trash. But yeah, that's a tough one. I really do like Batman though. I will say that. So, but it's just, I don't know. Just one is with my heart, I guess.
That's kind of where I was, where it was like, I picked Wizarding World because, again, I mentioned it, not a fan of Fantastic Beasts, but you got solid 8 films that have part of my childhood and stuff. Maybe other generations were more into the Batman thing, but I feel like The Dark Knight, perfect. Boom. Great. I love those films. But like, it's another thing, like Spider-Man. Oh, we're going to reboot it every 5 years. It's Michael Keaton. We have Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale. Okay, who's the next? Ben Affleck. It's just like constant. I mean, Robert Pattinson. It's just like, it's just like you didn't do it that time. Now you're doing it again. I mean, now you're doing it again. And how many times does his parents have to die in the alleyway? It's just, we've seen this. Joker. Okay, and it's just like the Dark Knight perfect trilogy. It's just, for me, I picked Wizarding World because I think it did it once. And it did well.
Yeah. So this was this round, for the most part, was kind of sad for me because a lot of the ones that I liked, kind of went away. I will say the thing I'm most nerd for is Lord of the Rings. I mean, what Peter Jackson did with how he created that world, I mean, it's fantastic. It's just. That's the thing that I get nerdy for, is the Lord of the Rings. So that seeing that lose kind of stinks, but But I mean, losing to Star Wars, what can you do, really?
Yeah, and I'll say that one was close. That one, Star Wars won over Middle Earth 52 to 48%.
Wow. Yeah. It's that part of the bracket's tough,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, so a couple of votes could have swung it the other way. There was a comment. This is obviously heading towards a MCU versus Star Wars end here, and I'm not so sure about that. We got our final four and leading to the final two here. First, John, what do you think of the final four? MCU versus Indiana Jones with Star Wars versus Batman.
I think it's a pretty tough matchup. Excuse me. I mean, those are movies that formed my childhood. I mean, I think the only one I really wasn't really seeing as a kid was the MCU. But I know a lot of people my age were into the comics, or that didn't that existed. So it's tough. It's really tough, and more so for me, I think it's tougher that I like a lot of the earlier stuff for all three of the other ones. So it's a little harder to judge when there's been a lot that came out since then. So it really was a tough choice.
Yeah, for me, going into making this and just playing it out in my head, all right, I kind of saw three of the four. Maybe Wizarding World could have snuck in over Batman. I wasn't sure.
I could have seen at least 2 out of the 4.
Yeah, but like MCU, Star Wars was making the final four, and I really thought our final two was going to be MCU versus Star Wars, but that's not the case. We'll break it down here. Star Wars defeated Batman 66 to 34%.
Okay, like 2/3.
Yeah, so comment was Star Wars is great, but the Dark Knight trilogy 2005 to 2012 beats even the best of the Star Wars films, the originals, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi.
I would have to agree with that. I would have to agree with that statement.
Yeah, like there's talk that at the Oscars they changed their 5 nominees for Best Picture to an expanded category the year after The Dark Knight was snubbed at the Oscars. They're like, we got to open this thing up to get films like The Dark Knight in here. I mean, it won an Oscar for Heath Ledger. It's one of my favorite films, definitely. And that trilogy was perfect. We talked to Chris Nolan earlier tonight. Yeah, it's just the Star Wars, the originals, I guess the prequels, I should say.
The prequels, the originals are good.
This second trilogy, or I guess the most recent trilogy. Those 4, 5, and 6, especially 4 and 5, those are great. But all right, here, this was the shock for the bracket. I think the entire bracket was Indiana Jones defeating the MCU.
Yeah,
I was shocked by this when I saw this.
Yeah, that's wild. That is wild to see.
It was close. 52.2 versus 47.8%.
Wow.
And how many votes?
I would have to go back to the form. Okay. I don't have the actual things with me. I'm sure it was like, 3 or 4 or 5 votes. I think those could have tied it up, switched it over. I mean, it was very close. Just that's why every vote matters. I'm glad in a way, because it was like, oh, it's gonna be very predictable. The final 2, Marvel versus Star Wars. It would have just, like everyone saw it. Like, I mean, that commenter was like, oh, the number 1 seed Marvel's gonna make it to the end. At least, Marvel's not gonna win.
Finals. Not gonna happen.
One commenter said the MCU is fake. Well,
sure.
I got news for you.
As are all the other nominees on this.
Indiana Jones, not a true story. Star Wars is actually a history film because it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it is a documentary about a different galaxy. But, I mean,
guess what? I mean, with how many Tiger King movies they're talking about making, that could be a part of this list before you know it.
Could be. All right here. Should we get to it? The final round? Indiana Jones versus Star Wars?
Yup.
While I said the Marvel versus Indiana Jones was the shocker of the bracket, I think it made it, to me personally, not the greatest final round. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
We had our big surprise in the round before.
That's sometimes how it happens.
Came too soon. But John, what do you think? Indiana Jones versus Star Wars. If you had to pick, what's your pick?
That's really tough. That's really tough because I really like Indiana Jones, and I really like that original, 4, 5, 6 of Star Wars. But there's just a lot more Star Wars that I haven't even seen them all. Some of those new ones I haven't seen. I think I've seen like episode 2 and 3 maybe once. So that kind of detracts from me. But at the same time, Crystal Skull was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think if I was gonna sit down and either watch 4 or Indiana Jones, I would probably go for Indiana Jones. Just because I think I've seen 4 more recently. Yeah. Star Wars 4,
Yeah, I'm trying to think for me. Again, yeah, it's like I feel like Star Wars has some, home runs, with episodes 4 and 5 and Last Jedi, and so, but like, man, there's some strikeouts in there and there's some other slog you got to get through. But I feel like as a whole, if I just want to sit down and have some fun, the 4 movies of Indiana Jones are stronger as a collective, I feel like, than the 12 films or whatever of the Star Wars franchise. Am I crazy, Kyle?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen all of Indiana Jones, so I can't say. But just for me, on a personal level, I would much rather watch. I mean, if I'm comparing the best Indiana Jones movie with Star Wars, I'm going to watch Star Wars. I just that fits my vibe a little bit more. And not saying Indiana Jones isn't great, but more casually, just want to watch Star Wars more. So that's what I would go with.
All right, well, let's reveal the winner. All right, the vote was 68.8 versus 31.3%. The winner of our favorite film franchise March Madness bracket is, drumroll, Star Wars. Surprise, surprise. Who could have thought? I just realized it's actually interesting. Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, and Han Solo, Star Wars.
Yeah,
it was the 2 Harrison Ford franchises. Nice work. Nice work. Is this a surprise, Kyle?
I was gonna make a bad Harrison Ford joke.
Oh, great.
I was gonna say he's so excited he'll probably drive his plane into the ground or whatever he does again.
I don't know about that. I don't know. Where's the punchline on that?
Okay. It was sorry. What was the question again? I was too busy thinking about my joke.
Pretty much, is this a surprise? Star Wars over Indiana Jones?
No. I mean, it's not a surprise to me. I mean, I wouldn't have even thought twice about it, but you thought as collective, Indiana Jones is better. So.
Well, I mean, I'd say as like a film, personally, I would rather watch, I think, the Indiana Jones films, but I could easily see Star Wars has the bigger cultural impact than Indiana Jones.
But still, I mean, yeah, cultural impact, sure. But I mean, Indiana Jones still has the thing. Don't they have the gun thing and the whip thing? That's still like a cultural relevant thing.
The gun thing and the whip thing. Mu6 brings up in the chat, Star Wars also has some positive recency bias with Mando. That it's a film franchise bracket, but it's hard to like differentiate. Oh yeah, the Mandalorian was just on Baby Yoda and all that buzz. It's been a while since Indiana Jones, and we are going to get an Indiana Jones 5, but it's going to be a little bit.
Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about Mandalorian because I haven't even watched that yet. So, yeah.
I'll run through some of these comments. Indiana Jones is better overall, but Star Wars has more of an impact. And I've watched all the films. Somebody said, Jones, man, bad. No pillaging artifacts, naughty. Don't make me smack. And they said, if there was no Disney Star Wars, I would have rated it above Indiana Jones, but Disney sucks. Well, I have news for you too. Indiana Jones is actually owned by Disney as well, so
Disney owns everything, man. They stink. They
Yeah,
just stink.
and then there was a random comment, Middle Earth will prevail. I don't know if
The
that was
Eye of
you, Scott.
Sauron. Yeah, I was
know if that
looking
was-
out.
But I could tell you who it wasn't. It was definitely not Mark, our friend Mark from the Good, Bad, and Watchable. It wasn't his comment because he actually sent his bracket every week to our Twitter feed, and it was kind of cool to see where his mind was going with the franchises here. And he actually had Rocky beat Middle Earth in round 1. He's a big Rocky guy, it looks like, and he had Rocky defeating Star Wars and making it to the final 4 alongside the MCU, Die Hard, and Batman. That was his final 4.
This is Mark's bracket, isn't it?
Rocky, MCU, Die Hard, and Batman, and then it was Batman versus the MCU in the final 2. I don't know who he had as a winner. He didn't send that one yet, but
there are no winners.
Yeah, so all right. Any final thoughts on the March Madness bracket? Was it a success, you think? Should we move to TV next year? Or, what do you think?
I think it was fun. I think it was good. It was inevitably with these brackets, they're favorites for a reason, so, but it was interesting. There were some surprises. I think there were more surprises than I think not. So at least for as the rankings go.
Yeah, I think so too. Because I mean, going in, it's like I was so worried when I was going to do this, and that's almost one of the reasons why I wanted to do trilogies instead. Because I was so worried. Well, is Marvel just going to win? If Marvel's going to win, then what's the point of doing this? And I was, I was like, well, maybe we can look at the other matchups and see which one actually. Oh, this film beat this one, and we could talk about the individual matchups instead of the overall picture. But then, Marvel didn't make it to the finals, so it was it was exciting towards the end. But I love these brackets. I love
that is fun.
The listeners to vote and interact and have fun with it as well. And let's see, next week we have another big show as well. And I mentioned the Good, Bad, and Watchable. We're gonna have them on. If everything goes according to plan, they will be joining us again for our annual prediction podcast where we will predict the 93rd Academy Awards. This year is going to be bonkers. We have a good streak so far, Kyle. I think we're like 3-0. I think we're doing well, but this year it could
we haven't lost. He's trying to put it modestly. I think we have never lost ever.
Well, I don't want to, I don't want to like jinx us here, but so we'll have them on. That's going to be Tuesday night. We'll be back to Tuesdays next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. That's the plan. But if anything changes, check our Twitter at Dual Redundancy. We'll let you know the schedule for sure. But if you want more film franchises and you want a little preview of the Good, Bad, and Watchable, you can actually check out last year's podcast we did, episode 304, our favorite summer blockbuster special. We had those guys on. We talked about our favorite blockbusters, so it kind of fits in with the franchises and having them on. So you can check that out if you like tonight's episode. But you can find episodes of the podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, the blog, dualredundancy.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dual Redundancy. And of course, make sure you're ready. Subscribe to Twitch, twitch.tv/Dual Redundancy. Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. is our usual time to go live. I got to thank both you guys. I had a lot of images this week for John to do, and I'm going to have even more technical challenges next week. And for both of you guys for just joining me and just doing this bracket nonsense. Couldn't do it without you guys.
Yeah, dude.
All right. Until next time, I'm David Allen.
I'm John Berwick.
And I'm Kyle Bridger.
And that's all we got for Dual Redundancy. Goodbye, everybody.